So I'm Diana Fischetti. I'm the Executive Director of Street Dog Hero, and work as the Director of Development and Marketing at United Way of Central Oregon. Before that, I actually worked in hospitality too. I used to own a restaurant in Bend that I operated for about 4 years and then sold. So I've been in Central Oregon for about 20 years, and I've been in this position for about 9 months. So next slide. So our mission and vision. Street Dog Hero serves dogs in need around the world and their communities through rescue, adoption, wellness, spay, neuter, and education. So our rescue and adoption efforts are foster-based. Our spay, neuter, and wellness efforts focus on both international street dogs as well as owned dogs internationally, as well as owned and street dogs and cats here in Central Oregon, and particularly in underserved communities. And then our advocacy and education work is really designed to make a lasting change in the lives of those that we impact. So our vision is that we envision a world where all dogs are healthy, safe, cared for, and wanted. And as I said, we're really focused on serving the communities where the people and the pets are least likely to receive care. And we're also really focused on the root causes of pet overpopulation to really try to make a lasting and positive change in the lives of our pets and their humans. So next slide. But what we really do is save and serve the lives that are the dogs that make people's lives worth living. So we concentrate our efforts, like I said, where people are least likely to receive care. And we have 3 programs that I was going to tell you about today. So they are all operating on different levels at the same time. So our goal is to really make systemic change in this arena. So next slide. So our first program is our Rescue, Foster, Adopt program, and I'm going to grab my water. But this is really our more romantic work, and I apologize, it's a little out of focus. I couldn't quite figure out how to fix that. As many of you know who have traveled extensively, you may have seen street dogs and street cats across the globe, and they suffer pretty challenging lives. Often they're pretty short lives, and they're full of a lot of pain and hardship. And so we're really working on saving those dogs from a life of pain and suffering, and then bringing them here to Central Oregon and to the Pacific Northwest overall. So here's how it works. Next slide. So first, we work in collaboration with rescue partners across the globe. So these are folks who are often housing dogs themselves. It could be a shelter environment. It could be a person whose home is basically also shared with 20, 30, 40, 50 dogs and cats. Sometimes they're farm type of situations. But we really work with them directly to identify the dogs that would be the best candidates to bring to the United States and come through our adoption program. So next slide. Then most of the time we rely on flight angels. These are volunteers who are traveling to the areas that we rescue from, and we hook them up with everything they need to be able to fly a dog either in cargo or underneath the seat in front of them. And we've also started to do ground transportation. So we work with organizations that have buses that can transport like 70, 80 dogs from Mexico, and they'll bring them up as well. And we're also starting some relationships with private plane companies that specifically do dog transport as well. And that's particularly focused on rescues in the southern United States that have high euthanasia rates. Next slide. So then once they get here, whatever kind of care they didn't receive prior to coming to the United States, we provide. And they come with all sorts of things: Giardia, tapeworm, Ehrlichia, like all the things you could imagine. And so we go through a whole process of providing veterinary care for every single one, spaying and neutering them, vaccinating them to make up for the difference in their vaccines, treating them, everything like that. And then, next slide. And then they spend time in foster families. So our program is foster-based, so that means the dogs go into a home where they kind of learn how to be a home dog until they are adopted into their forever homes. Next slide. So some numbers. Since 2017, we've rescued 2,200 dogs from neglect, hunger, abuse, and abuse from around the world. So in the U.S., you can see the regions that we've worked in, and we're looking to expand that significantly in the coming year. And abroad, we've rescued from Afghanistan, Albania, Armenia, British Virgin Islands, China, Guam, India, Mexico, most recently Romania, to make room for Ukrainian displaced dogs, and South Korea, St. Thomas, and Thailand. So next slide. So I'm going to go through 11 slides that are before and after pictures. They're going to get more sad as I go through them, so if you don't want to see them, okay, open your eyes and I'll tell you when they're over. But you can go 11 slides. Yeah, I mean, you know, whatever pace you're comfortable with. So this dog has an Instagram feed, so if you're on Instagram, you can follow him. Korea.
It's crazy.
Thank you. So I always try not to cry whenever I look at it. But you can see that a lot of these dogs, all they need is health care, some time, proper medications, and tending to their wounds, and that's what we do. So the second thing I wanted to share with you about is our spay, neuter, and wellness program. So the first is kind of our romantic work. This is more of the under the hood work. So kind of crazy statistic here that you wouldn't expect or shocking, that one unspayed female dog and her unaltered puppies can produce 67,000 dogs in 6 years. For cats, the number is staggering. It's 420,000 kittens. So, you know, we talk a lot about dogs, but under the hood, Street Dog Hero is also really focused on feral cat populations here in Central Oregon. So, next slide. So I talked a little bit at the beginning about tackling the root cause of pet overpopulation, and the way that we do this is through low and no-cost spay and neuter clinics to really reduce the total number of companion animals that are born. So we're working at one level, rescuing the dogs that need to be rescued. We're working at this other level to try to reduce pet overpopulation through medical means. And so, as I said before, we're both working internationally, mostly in Mexico, and then here in Central Oregon. So next slide. So here's some numbers, and also you can see in Central Oregon. But alongside of these partners, we've provided spay and neuter services to over 1,000 and wellness to over 800 here in Central Oregon. Internationally, the number is 2,250 for spay and neuter clinics and 2,600 wellness services. Next slide. So I wanted to take just a quick second to tell you a little bit about our two most recent clinics that were in Puerto Morelos and Chetumal, Mexico. Both are funded by Tito's Podcast. Vodka drinker. They are vodka for dog people, which is great. So the first one in Chetumal was my first international clinic in this role, and people lined up for 2 days. They lined up early in the morning. Folks that had no access to transportation figured out how to get there. First day is dog day, second day is cat day. Excuse me, and we asked people to bring cats in some sort of a container, and you'd be shocked to see the types of containers that people fashion. You know, it's like a laundry basket with like an oven rack zip tied on top. And basically the way it works is we have a community center. We have veterinarians that we hire that are local to Mexico. This time it was a team of 16, so they worked in 2 shifts, 8 in the morning, 8 in the afternoon. For 2 days we did 465 sterilization surgeries. It's all kind of in one room. There's always music playing. These vets are much younger than American vets. They go through school earlier, they get out earlier, and they get out having performed tons and tons of surgeries before they're actually veterinarians. So they're very efficient. And the owners, you know, they wait around all day and they hang out with their animals in recovery, and they're so appreciative for these services because they just really can't access them. So lots of things that we do in addition to the surgeries. We do a lot of education. Particularly, there's a disease called TVT, which is a sexually transmitted disease for dogs that results in cancer, much like cervical cancer and HPV. So educating folks about that and treating when possible. Nail trims, flea and tick, you know, all of that stuff that we do. Removing a lot of chains and replacing them with collars, all of that kind of stuff. So next slide, please. In the last clinic we were at in Puerto Morelos, we were awarded some awards by the Mexican government, the municipal Mexican government. And also on that clinic we had 5 of our junior heroes come and join us. So these are all minors that came and participated really meaningfully in the clinic and learned a ton, which I can tell you more about after if you have questions. So next slide. So our upcoming clinic in October of 2022 is going to be outside in Tepic. So we're going to do 3 clinics in 3 locations in 3 days, with the goal of 200 for the first 2, one being in a school, the second being in a very impoverished community right here called Tres de Julio. This community just was given ownership documents by the government for land that had been squatted for quite some time. And then the last will be at a slaughterhouse for horses and pigs, where there's free-roaming dogs, about 300 of them, and we're going to try to round them up by blow darting them, so we'll see how that goes. But those folks are going to poison all those dogs if we don't go do something, if somebody doesn't do something. These are all on the heels of some local work. We have a wellness clinic coming up in Warm Springs in August. And back in December, we did a pilot satellite clinic for communities in Warm Springs. So we identified 5 families that were in desperate need of spay and neuter services. In combination with Humane Society and Fences for Fido, went to their houses with a big van, picked up all those dogs, brought them all to our new facility, which is here in Bend, did all those surgeries, and then brought all those dogs back to those homes that night. That was like a huge ordeal. We probably won't do it like that again, but it was a good try. And next slide. So the last program I wanted to just touch on briefly is our Reach Out, Educate, Advocate program. We have our Junior Heroes program. Those are volunteer and educational opportunities for kids ages 6 and up, including traveling to Mexico to participate in clinics. We have our first ever summer camp that we're piloting this year, August 24th through the 26th. And then we're actually working on educational initiatives in Mexico itself. We're working on educational murals in La Paz right now. And then finally, a new effort that I'm deeply vested in is reducing barriers to pet ownership and housing. The number one reason that pets are surrendered is because of housing restrictions to pet ownership. And if you also think about folks that are losing housing because they don't want to part with their pet, and then not accessing shelter services because they are not allowed, there's a huge number of people that are unhoused, particularly because they don't want to let go of their pets. So one of the things that I'll be working on, and Street Dog Hero will be working on in coming days, is kind of piggybacking on legislation at all levels to look at reducing barriers in government-funded housing to pet ownership. Next slide. Exciting news, we just celebrated our 5-year anniversary. We also just got our first ever brick and mortar. We call it the Heroes Haven. This is not only office space, event space, training space, kennel space, but it also has a full surgical suite that we are hoping to actualize through hiring a veterinarian. So that's our next big thing that we need to do to really be able to offer consistent, low-cost spay, neuter, and wellness services to the Central Oregon community at a physical location. And we also launched our first ever capital campaign. So $50,000 is the amount it costs us to operate the space for a year. And so we're actively fundraising for that. Next slide. So, a couple ways you can help. We have our 3rd annual Heroes on the Run fundraiser, September 25th. It has a kid zone, a beer garden, a dog zone, a fun run, a kids run, a raffles, all that stuff that you would expect. So we're still looking for some sponsors, vendors, and also for folks to run. It is a fun run. It's not timed. Lots of people are walking it. There's registration cards that you've got there. Our goal is to raise $75,000. Last year we did $65,000, so a little ambitious. We'll see. Next slide. You can also volunteer at or sponsor one of our domestic or international spay and neuter clinics. We have lots of fun when we go to Mexico with our volunteers. We try to provide some recreation, so what do I call it? Volunteer tourism opportunities beyond the clinic work. So that's always an opportunity. Next slide. You can be a flight angel if you're flying back from any of the areas that we rescue from, particularly focused in Mexico right now. Next slide. You can involve a kid you know in the Junior Heroes program. We've got some 6-year-olds coming in now, which is really cool because most of our original group are aging out. Next slide. You can volunteer at our new space, the Heroes Haven. We're always looking for folks to come and walk dogs or help clean or do laundry or anything like that, even just pop in for a day, always needed. Our volunteer, I'll have all of the contact info of all of our managers at the end on the last slide. So next slide. So you could become a foster. We basically tailor this experience to you. So you can say what dog you're interested in fostering, for how long. We match you up with the requirements. It's really, really fun, especially if you don't want a full-time animal and you just kind of want to dip your toe in or just want to have a dog for a month. That's always an opportunity. And there's a foster application on our website. Next slide. You can also adopt. So we advertise our dogs on our website, on Pet Finder, and on social media, which if you're on social media, you should follow us. It's great posts. We have an application fee. It's $15. Once you're approved, your application is good for a whole year. Once you find a dog you're interested in, we do a meet and greet, and then we do a 3-day home trial, and then if it works out, you can finalize the adoption. The adoption fee is $500. That's a break-even program at best with all the veterinary care and transportation that we do. Next slide. And then you can donate, of course. So our general fund, our capital campaign, we have an Amazon wish list as well, and we update that all the time. And then we have events going regularly, so bingo, Heroes on the Run, things like that. So our goal is to make a lasting and positive change in the lives of the dogs and their people in the communities that we serve, and we can't do it alone. We do it with help of all of our supporters and folks like you, so thank you. And do I have time to tell the story of this dog real quick? Sure. Okay, this is Canelo. So this, his before picture's over here. He was run over by a car times, and he was paralyzed from the waist down and has a lot of kind of facial injuries. And Marianne, our founder, had visited him in a shelter called The Dog's New Life, which is outside of Puerto Vallarta, or Sayulita, a couple times. And we went there again, and we kind of could tell that he was like starting to fail to thrive. She did a video plea, like just a piece of papers that you pull apart, saying he's been here for 2 years. There's an organization called Angels with Misplaced Wings. And this is their founder. Totally get every time. So they they basically live in Washington. The founder and is living his best life, and it's very sweet. So next slide, please. So this is all our contact info. There's me, our founder. This is our foster program manager, if you're interested in that. This is our adoptions program manager. And then if you're interested in volunteering, it's just becca@streetdoghero.org. All of our contact info is here. And any questions? Okay, cool.
Where did you all get your start again?
So our founder, and pardon me while I look for my water, it's right here. So yeah, our founder I started the nonprofit in 2017. She had been traveling internationally quite a bit and saw a lot of the street dogs and was like, I just want to rescue one dog. And then, 5 years later, it's 2,200 dogs. It really just started as rescuing street dogs and bringing them here. But as the organization has grown, we now have, there's 9 staff so I have 8, staff that I manage. We have the spay, neuter, and wellness program. We're starting to really partner with rescues in the United States in addition to looking to Mexico and the other communities around the globe. And now this education advocacy piece is a huge part of the work that we're doing. So it's really blown up. Most of our fundraising is still through either social media or individual relationships or our events, and so we have not done a lot of the things that United Way does with like mailed appeals and that kind of stuff. So that's part of what I'm bringing to the organization, is that next level of fundraising. Yeah.
If you want to foster possibility of adoption, most people fall in love with who they're fostering, unless they're in a situation they go, no, I strictly want to be fostered. Are the dogs, before they go to the foster parent or parents, they're medically treated and stuff, correct?
They get treated while they're in foster for a lot of their stuff, because they come here and we have a facility, but we try not to have anyone live there for any length of time. So they go right to a foster. So like I fostered probably 10 dogs, and a lot of times they're on antibiotics, for whatever while they're there, or they might get their flea and tick treatments, or they might be getting their vaccines. And so as a foster, you might be bringing them to those vet appointments to get those treatments done.
Funded by? Oh, okay.
Yeah, once they're adopted, then they become the property of the adopters. But up until that adoption, Street Dog Hero covers everything. And we do have, we have 4 heartworm positive dogs that we have brought in, and they have lengthy and involved treatments. And so we have an MOU that dictates that the adoption will happen at a certain date after the treatment. So it still remains Street Dog Hero's responsibility to cover that.
Okay.
Yeah, so. But they do come with all sorts of funny things sometimes, but generally you kind of keep them away from your own dogs for a day or two till they see the vet, what's going on, and then you can kind of make a decision about how you...
Because I'm interested.
It's so much fun. I love it. My husband just told me, he's like, I think I need a break from fostering for a little while, so... Because we have 3 of our own, and then...
Well, I have a friend of mine that... one of the things she does it as a volunteer, and I'm sorry, I've been trying to rack my brain on who she's with, but she goes out onto the logging roads and all of that, and her thing, what she does is, so many people abandon, even in Central Oregon, they abandon those dogs, and she goes and she does this 4 days a week and drives out there, and when she finds them, brings them back, and then she's kind of contracted with Brightside, I think, SPCA and Bend, but she's been doing that for years.
That's wonderful.
She just says it's to her, it's one of the best, things that she can do is, she goes, they just take them way out in the forest area and they dump them, and she goes, I can't let it happen. And she spends hours going out there, her and her daughter.
That's amazing.
So,
yeah, and I think that's part of the work that we do with the low-cost spay and neuter and the free spay and neuter in Mexico. It's it's helping people, because the humans don't have to face those specific situations where now they have 12 puppies and they don't have the means to care for them. And humans having to make these types of decisions about animals that they don't even want to be making in the first place is extremely sad.
The sad thing is people don't realize, they don't want to pay that turn-in fee. Just take them to the shelter or find someone who will take them. But to take them and drop them off in the middle of nowhere, it breaks my heart every time she'll send me a picture, and I'm just like, oh, thank you so much for finding that dog.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I've got tons of dog stuff, like collars and leashes and all those things that dogs either outgrow, because, the puppies, they grow up, or, they are bought and they don't like. Is there a way that we can donate those sorts of things to you as well?
Yeah, we actually have a drop box that's right in front of our space, which is located right here. If that's difficult, we can always send somebody up or have a volunteer who lives in Redmond meet up with you and pick them up. And for the collars and the leashes, we bring a lot of those down to Mexico with us because we're often in the business of switching out chains and electrical cords and stuff like that for fabric collars. But we also, when we have our own spay and neuter and wellness clinics, we do the same. So when we go to Warm Springs, we'll bring collars and leashes and switch them out there. But any dog supplies, dog food, dog beds, bedding, pee pads, chew toys, everything. Any kind of dog supply you could imagine, we can totally use. And we actually have a consignment account at the Gear Fix, which is a gear store in Bend. So even if it's technical gear that we may not be able to use, we have an avenue to sell it to make money for the organization as well. So light doggy life preservers, life vests, or booties and stuff like that. We can use all of it. Yeah.
I thought I saw the Humane Society logo on one of your slides. Do you partner with them or something?
We do. We partner with them a lot on spay, neuter, and wellness efforts. So the Humane Society they have a pool of money called the Daisy Fund, which is a donor-restricted bequest fund that's specifically for dogs in Jefferson County. And so they're only allowed to use that money for dogs in Jefferson County. And so often we'll partner with them and we'll kind of fill in the gaps. And so we could provide resources to do the cats, right? Or something like that. For that wellness or the spay and neuter pilot satellite clinic that we did for Warm Springs, Humane Society loaned us their van, their transportation van, and a volunteer. And that's who drove to Warm Springs at 4 a.m. to go to all the homes to pick up all the dogs, and then brought it all back and then drove all the way back again. So we're always looking to work, in collaboration with Humane Society. We also, when we do our clinics, our veterinarians right now are volunteering for us. They'll take their Saturdays and Sundays and donate them to the effort. And so Dr. Crystal Bloodworth, who's the Humane Society's vet, will often donate her time. Also, staff at Humane Society were huge supporters of Street Dog Hero as it started, kind of mentored the organization as it came up. And the executive director of Street Dog Hero is a friend of mine or of Humane Society, and she's mentoring me too. So we're always looking for ways that we can work together to collaborate.
Awesome. Diane, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, and I'll say, if there's any of the handouts I gave you that you don't want, because we're a nonprofit, I'd be happy to take them back. So thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we normally have a little pen, but those are back at our other location.
That's okay.
So we'll get it
We'll
up.
save it for another
No.
time.
Yeah.